Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted the number 1 would be The Fall Guy, number 2 would be the re-release of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, number 3 would be Tarot, number 4 would be Challengers, and number 5 would be Unsung Hero. I only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend, and also none of you guys got close. Some of you made similar predictions to myself, but nobody got their predictions right for this weekend. Although it's not like this big, like, oh my gosh, something came out of nowhere and something, like, held over really well. It's just kind of like a normal, like, you know what I mean? I do also want to thank you guys before I go into the video. Thank you for your patience. This video is coming up a little later. I gave you a warning last weekend about that. I'm recording this audio like an hour after I have like gotten back. I'll, edit it before tomorrow comes around. But thank you all for your patience. Let's dive into what happened in the overall top 10. So number 1 was The Fall Guy, of course. Like, I think everyone expected that to happen. There's no surprise as far as that goes, but I think some people were definitely expecting a bit more of a weekend return. Right now, for the 3-day opening weekend, we have $28 million. Now, the worldwide total bumps it up to $65 million, so you might think, okay, that's not too bad, right? Well, if this was a bit more of like a mid-budget film, then yeah, like if the budget was around $50 million, then this is not a bad opening at all. The problem is that the budget is apparently, and I've seen some other people try to say that it's a little bit higher than this, but this is kind of like the average of where people stick as far as the budget goes, and it makes the most sense to me. The budget is $125 million. So that's a lot that you have to make back, so that they need $250 million worldwide, like in total, to be considered a success. That's their doubling point. So opening with this, and next week we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It's kind of looking like, is word of mouth going to help this movie? The fact that there's only one new blockbuster coming out, will people who aren't interested in Planet of the Apes give another movie a try? Who knows, And also, who knows how this even happened? Because, like I said, this is a little bit lower than some people were anticipating. Some people are saying, like, the kickoff of the summer movie season is opening up with a sizzle, So what happened here? And a lot of people are trying to, like, be box office experts, unlike me, who has never claimed to be a box office expert, but maybe gives that impression when I don't really necessarily mean to. A lot of people just throwing out anything like, they've conditioned people to wait a couple weeks and then it's going to be at home. We literally have an example of that in the top 10, which we will talk about in a second. The fact that it costs so much money when this isn't like a mid-budget kind of blockbuster. People are tired of IP, it's like, I don't know how many people actually know that this movie is directly based off of the old TV show. I'm sure there are some people who will maybe make that connection, but I think also the main difference is that the movie, I have never seen the show, but it definitely seems like the movie veers in other directions than the show. So it's like, yes, technically it's an IP thing, but it's also it's being sold as an original film. Like, they're not marketing it like, how does it feel to take on the legacy? It's similar to David Leitch's other film, Bullet Train, where yes, that is technically not an original film because it's based off of a novel, but they're not promoting it like based on the acclaimed bestseller or anything like that. They're just promoting it as an original action film. They're not using the IP to market it, is basically what I'm trying to get at. They, put big movie stars in there. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt. That's the re-team from the Barbenheimer hit of last summer. Not re-team, but you know what I mean. Getting at least 2 of those people from those things. You got a couple other actors in there, like Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso and Winston Duke from Us and Black Panther. So you have other names in there too. For whatever reason, I don't know. It's really hard to say whether it is just people aren't seeing the big Barbenheimer event with this, or like it's part of the ongoing franchise, or whatever, or people are like how people talked about Dune, how that's like this visual marvel, you have to go see it. No one's really saying that about The Fall Guys. Some people are very entertained by it, and the majority of the Rotten Tomatoes reviews are saying like, yeah, overall positive, so I genuinely, I think it really is just a thing of like, man, audiences have really changed over this weekend of people trying to come up with reasons thousands, you have people like saying one thing and then somebody else will go like, well, actually you're wrong and that's actually weird of you to say. It's a mess, you know? I definitely do think there is an issue of people just, you know, not going to the theater. They say they want to see these movies and then they don't. But then on the other end of the coin, you have people that will bring up that they, you know, when they go to theaters, a lot of the time they will get bad experiences from other people who think they're in their living rooms. You know, you see it online even now where people are posting videos of them with their phones out in the theater. They're recording the screen, recording their cheers. And it's like, I get it. You know, I get that totally. You know what I mean? I don't think that makes up the majority of the audience, but I mean, shit. Who fucking know? I mean, every other reason, you know, it costs so much. You got to prioritize. Man, you know. And I think another key difference with like Bullet Train is that like that movie, you know, it grossed over 200 million worldwide. If I remember, that's where it kind of ended up. And why that worked so well is that the budget was under 100 million. It was $90 million. So that was like, okay, you know, if The Fall Guy had that budget, it would be like, all right, maybe a little bit off course here, but we can, you know, maybe if there's a solid word of mouth. And also, this is not to rule out any potential word of mouth rebound in the next couple weeks. Obviously, we have seen stranger things happen with the box office and movies opening pretty flat and then they have a great stay. But like many people have also pointed out, you know, sometimes these studios will have a movie out for a bit and then they're like, well, not worth keeping in the theaters. Let's put it on home, you know, and at that point, you know, maybe people will watch it then and they'll make back some of their money through video rentals or Blu-ray buys or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I know some people want answers and I don't know if anything I just said made any sense to try to explain what the fuck happened here. I don't know, you know. Because that's the thing also is like some people will say like, well, it looked like dog shit, but then other people like myself will probably say like, I don't know, I thought the trailers looked entertaining. You know what I mean? So it's not as clear cut, and I wish there was like a simpler thing to say here. It's not, I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, that came out this week? I didn't even see any marketing. It's like, did you fucking miss literally every like red carpet thing that happened where like, hey, he's dressed up as Beavis and Butthead. They're doing stunts. He did stunts on the way out to Jimmy Kimmel. Like, did you miss that? Apologies, I got a little off topic. Let's go over some David Leitch stats before we move on. As far as opening weekends go, it is 10 million over Atomic Blonde, which is his lowest grossing film, so there you go. But it is 2 million below the opening weekend of Bullet Train. Like I mentioned, if the budget was closer to Bullet Train's, this wouldn't be too bad, just a little off course. It's 32 million below Hobbs and Shaw and 97 million below Deadpool 2. That's obvious. As far as the domestic runs, it only needs 23 million until it outgrosses Atomic Blonde. Worldwide, like I said, since it's sitting at 65 million, it needs 33 million until it outgrosses Atomic Blonde. So at the very least, it probably won't go down as David Leitch's lowest grossing film. And, you know, I'm always rooting for David Leitch. I know some people have given him a bad rap recently. Some people didn't really care for Bullet Train or Hobbs and Shaw, which I can understand to some degree. You know, some complaints, whatever. But, you know, I'm always rooting for the guy because I'm most of the time entertained by his films and I, you know, want to see him thrive and get better and, you know, put some great stuff out. Bullet Train was one of my favorite movies of 2022. I genuinely really enjoyed that. Thought he did a great job with Deadpool 2. So I hope this doesn't put a hamper in anything else he does, you know. Anyways, let's move on to number 2, which is Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace re-release. That's pretty good, you know, for a re-release doing pretty good. It made 8 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 482 million. Worldwide, that adds to a total of $1.035 billion. Congrats. You know, I don't really have much to say about Star Wars. You know, it's like, it's a re-release, especially that too, you know what I mean? It's a re-release, you know, it's still making some, it's the anniversary as well. So it's the 25th anniversary. So it's like, yeah, it'll be a little bit bigger than, your average re-release. I should have looked it up. Should I look up how the 3D re-releases did? The one 3D re-release, I should say. No. Let's move on. Like I said, I have nothing else to add. I don't want to add anything. I'm done. Let's move on to number 3, which is Challengers, making 7.6 million, adding to a domestic total of 29 million. So even though it opened with around, what was it, like 11 million? It wasn't like the biggest opening ever, but because of that, the holdover isn't too bad either. That adds to a domestic total of 29 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at 52 million, so it's 3 million off from getting to its initial production budget of 55 million. So it's still a little iffy to see if it will be able to double that budget, and like I said, we do have a big blockbuster coming out next weekend. Who knows if that'll give other people opportunities to seek out other films if they're not interested in that one. We just have to wait and see, but I'm glad that there is a solid word of mouth going around around about this and that people are checking it out and, people are talking about it, just to show you, and of course I say this before we even know if it's considered a success when it doubles that $55 million budget. But even then, as long as you're talked about, that talk can continue on. So there's hope for you yet, The Fall Guy. For Luca Guadagnino, domestically, it has outgrossed Call Me By Your Name, and worldwide it outgrossed Call Me By Your Name, both by $11 million. What a crazy coinky-dink. Let's move on to number 4, which is Tarot, which, honestly, when I made my prediction last week, and I thought, this could very easily be the next Boy Kills World, or even Cobweb from last year, where I don't even know if that placed in the top 10. But here it is, and I was even, having seen the film also, I was shocked that it didn't cost a little bit more than it did. I don't know why I was shocked by that necessarily. But it made $6.5 million this weekend, adds to a worldwide total of $10 million. But on a budget of $8 million, that's pretty damn good. It only needs $6 million more to go. And the fact that it made $6 million here domestically for the 3 days, yeah, of course it can do that. Combined domestic and worldwide total. Will it be able to triple that budget? I mean, shit, why not? That is low enough where that could very well happen. This movie is fucking terrible, by the way. I'm glad for whoever made this film. They probably don't have the best reviews right now. I haven't checked, but I'm gonna just assume it probably doesn't have the best Rotten Tomatoes score. But I mean, shit, it's seemingly about to be a big hit on this low budget scale. So you made something that people came out to. Congrats. Let's move on to number 5, which is Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, making $4.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $188 million. It is $12 million away from outgrossing Godzilla 2014 right now. Worldwide, it is sitting at $546 million, and it has outgrossed the 2014 Godzilla by $17 million, now sits behind Skull Island by $15 million. And even though it has slowed down a bit, it's not going to slow down enough to not make that $15 million back. So when it does, it will be the highest grossing film worldwide in the MonsterVerse franchise. Holy shit! This movie, in my opinion, my least favorite one, is going to be the highest grossing film. Holy shit. I've already covered a lot of how impressive it is, blah, 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 in these last couple weeks. I don't really have any other stats to point out, so congrats. It's still in the top 5. Crazy. Let's move on to number 6, which is Civil War, making $3.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $62 million. Last week, we talked about how it's closing in on the top A24 domestic run, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's inching a little closer to that now. It needs $15 million in order to do so. Worldwide, it is sitting at $78 million, so for A24, it is still behind Lady Bird. Last time we checked on it, it was behind it. Now it's just behind it by $2 million, but it will soon, take its number 4 spot for highest grossing worldwide runs. It's still in the top 5, so don't worry about that. I think more importantly, it needs $22 million until it doubles that $50 million budget. So it's, if the worldwide numbers in total only bump it up just a little bit, domestically, that's where most of its income has come from. So I'm, hoping for this movie's sake, for A24's sake, for Alex Garland's sake. He's literally beginning production on another movie right now. So, good for him that he already had that in line. But I hope that they can at the very least double this budget. Getting to $100 million, worldwide for any movie is one thing, depending on how much, but this one being right down the middle as far as its production budget, it would be really great to see, but people are still talking about it, people are still recommending it and saying, it was an interesting experience, so it's getting some people out there, so we may have, still a good hold for this one. Number 7 is Unsung Hero. I thought it would hold a little better, and it dipped in, below the top 5, so it made $3.0 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $13 million for Kingdom Story Company. I believe that's what the company's called. It did outgross, I still believe, by $3 million. It now needs $6 million until it outgrosses Ordinary Angels, which you might remember as the Blink and You Miss It movie from a couple months ago. I don't really have much more to add. Just congrats. They have doubled their $6 million budgets by $1 million. So there you go. They're on their way to triple that now if they make $5 million more. So congrats, Kingdom Story Company. Number 8 is Kung Fu Panda 4, making $2.4 million, adding to a domestic total of $188 million. Domestically, it still needs $27 million until it outgrosses the original film, but worldwide, we finally did it, folks. If you've been watching, we finally did it. Now that it's sitting at $520 million, and it has outgrossed Kung Fu Panda 3 by just a couple $100,000. We literally just snuck in there. It now needs $111 million until it outgrosses the original film's worldwide run. The highest grossing worldwide film is Kung Fu Panda 2. So it at the very least outgrossed 3. Domestically, like we've been saying, it's been blowing through these other films. Right now, it's looking like it won't outgross the original, but finally, worldwide, they're making some waves. Congrats, Poe and DreamWorks. Number 9 is Abigail. God, the money that Taro got, can we not just funnel that into Abigail? It made $2.3 million, adding to a domestic total of $22 million. For Radio Silence, it is $6 million behind Ready or Not's domestic run. Worldwide, it is sitting at $34 million. That is $22 million off from doubling its $28 million initial production budget. It's about to leave the top 10, though. This and The First Omen, I was really hoping for a much better run. And I also just saw, like yesterday, it's about to hit VOD either this week or next week. So it's like, man, what happened? What is going on? Genuinely, Jesus. But for the worldwide run for Radio Silence, it is still $2 million behind Devil's Due. So it will, at the very least, outgross that film. Finally, closing out the video, number 10, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, making $1.8 million, adding to a domestic total of $109 million. It's about to leave the top 10, and it still has not outgrossed Ghostbusters 2 domestically. It needs $3 million now until it does that. Hey, it'll probably do it once it leaves the top 10. Worldwide, it is sitting at $195 million. It is $5 million off from officially doubling that $100 million initial production budget. And it's also $8 million off now from outgrossing Ghostbusters Afterlife. It is still not for its entire time that it's been in the top 10. It has not outgrossed any other Ghostbusters film, which I am sure someone at Sony is making note of. You know, I don't know. Like I said, with the domestic number, it'll probably, finally double that budget once it leaves the top 10. But I can't talk about it in this video unless Unsung Hero drops even more, and then Ghostbusters has an extra slot when only one new blockbuster comes out. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Like I said, there's really only one, and I think number 1 will be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The other, Planet of the Apes movies have done really well at the box office. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I believe, is the peak, making around 700 to 800 million. A Rise and War, I believe, are kind of around the same area of like a little over 400 million, under 500 million, something like that. So I think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes will do well, and especially like, with people praising like Dune 2 for its visual marvel, you got to go see that on the big screen. I'm sure there will be some kind of talk for doing that with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And maybe some people will be daunted by the fact that it is technically part of this long-going franchise. But I mean, really, it's kind of like a requel, the Scream requel, where it's, it's a sequel to the reboot films, but it's not, you won't necessarily have to watch those. If I'm correct, I haven't seen the movie yet. And yeah, it's part of the reboot franchise. You don't need to watch the classics if you don't want to, although some of them are still pretty good. Not the Tim Burton one. Number 2, I think, will be The Fall Guy. Number 3, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which I believe is still going to be playing in some theaters. Number 4, Challengers, and then number 5, Taro. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.